Look at the map on your wall. You trust it. You believe the lines drawn on it represent reality. You are wrong. By 2030, 5 of the nations currently recognized by the United Nations will technically, legally, or functionally cease to exist. We are not talking about ancient history. We are talking about right now. I am speaking to you from February 2026. Where the headlines are already confirming the decomposition of the old world order. The United Nations has promised bankruptcy by July unless cash is injected. The United States has declared its former best friend, Canada, a fussed, dangerous threat. The map you learned in school is a lie. History proves that when a nation hits a specific debt-to-stability ratio, it doesn't just struggle, it evaporates. Welcome to the erasure. Before we name the victims, you need to understand the murder weapon. It isn't always a missile. In 2024, the Fragile States Index annual report revealed a terrifying trend. 24 out of 179 countries showed a significant year-on-year decline in stability. This wasn't a glitch. It was a signal. The long-term trend since 2014 shows a consistent degradation of state capacity. An industry expert famously predicted the ethos of 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. That wasn't a utopian promise. It was a warning about the end of ownership, including the ownership of sovereignty. When a country's debt becomes its identity, the country disappears. The Global Sovereign Debt Monitor reported that in 2023, 54% of all low and middle-income countries were forced to cut public spending. They didn't cut luxury projects. They cut the state itself. The average cut in critically indebted nations was 2.4% of GDP. That is not budgeting. That is amputation. They are dismantling the internal infrastructure required to maintain a functioning state to pay foreign creditors. This creates a vacuum, and physics dictates that a vacuum cannot exist for long. Let's look at the first victim. Burkina Faso. On paper, this is a sovereign nation in West Africa. In reality, it is a ghost. The Fragile States Index 2023 confirms that the central government controls only slightly over 50% of the country's territory. Pause and process that. Half the country is gone. The other half is governed by non-state armed groups. Here is the irony that kills nations. The Burkinabe military has been involved in active counterinsurgency operations since 2015. They ramped up military spending to save the state. But the result was the acceleration of its collapse. The more they fought, the less land they held. They thought they were different. They thought a strongman leader could hold the borders together with force. But force requires money. And money requires a tax base, which they lost when they lost the territory. By 2030, the legal fiction of Burkina Faso will likely be replaced by a balkanized region of warring city-states. The map still says Burkina Faso, but the ground truth says anarchy. The second category of extinction is financial liquidation. This applies to the small island nations, specifically Kiribati and its neighbors. You think I'm going to talk about climate change and rising sea levels? That's too slow. The death blow here is financial. Data on small islands shows they had an average external debt of 48% to 51% of gross national income between 2011 and 2019. Today, 40% of these nations are critically indebted. They are insolvent. To survive, they have turned to the desperate sale of their only remaining asset, sovereignty. We are seeing citizenship sales and land creation schemes. They are selling passports to wealthy foreigners who will never step foot on the island. This is the commoditization of nationality. By 2030, these entities won't be countries. They will be corporations holding a seat at the UN, leased out to the highest bidder. An industry expert described the stressors facing these populations: lifestyle diseases, climate change, the refugee crisis, environmental degradation. It is a cocktail of termination. When you sell your citizenship to pay your electric bill, you cease to be a nation. You become a landlord for a ghost population. The third victim represents corporate acquisition. Let's look at the headline from January 21st, 2026. Trump talks Greenland at Davos, announces framework deal. The media laughed when the idea was floated years ago. They aren't laughing now. Geopolitics is real estate. With the Arctic melting, new shipping lanes are opening, and great powers are moving in. The CSIS report on 4 scenarios for geopolitical order in 2025 to 2030 highlighted the return of raw great power competition. Greenland is a territory of Denmark, but its strategic value is worth more than its current political status can sustain. In a world where the U.S. holds $870 billion in debt owned by China, Assets must be secured. The purchase, or indefinite lease, of Greenland effectively erases it as a semi-autonomous entity and turns it into a strategic military base with a flag. They thought they were different. They thought international norms would protect their status. But when a superpower needs a unsinkable aircraft carrier in the North Atlantic, norms evaporate. Exhibit D is the one you won't believe. Canada. You think Canada is safe? You are wrong. Look at the news from January 30th, 2026. Under Donald Trump, Canada's former best friend is now our most dangerous threat. Why? Because the Canadian economy is hollowing out. The OECD's States of Fragility 2025 report emphasizes that donor nations are under pressure to increase national contributions by 25%. But they can't. Canada is fractured. Provinces like Alberta are openly discussing separation. The economic integration with the United States is so deep that if the USMCA trade agreement is weaponized, Canada ceases to function as an independent economy. By 2030, we could see a North American Union, in all but name, where Ottawa retains ceremonial power, but all fiscal and border decisions are made in Washington. It is the polite annexation. They thought they were different because they were nice. But history does not care about manners. It cares about leverage. The pattern is undeniable. From the sands of Burkina Faso to the ice sheets of Greenland, the nation-state is under siege. The CIA predicted a 2030 spike in global catastrophe back in 2002. We are 4 years away. The debt cuts of 1.9% to 2.4% happening right now are the death rattle. These countries aren't just going bankrupt. They are being foreclosed on. The world map of 2030 will not look like the world map of 2020. The only question left is, which side of the new border will you be on? Class dismissed.